my window singing, singing, hello, hello.
Callie and Riley were twins. They were very sweet girls and they did everything together. They'd gotten out of their beds, made the bed up, got dressed, and were putting on their shoes. Then they were ready to head downstairs for breakfast when Riley said, "Oh boy, no school." Down the stairs they ran as they continued to yell, "No school, yay!" And into the cozy kitchen they went. Mom had their plates at the bar, and the girls each hopped up on the bar stools. Mom had made scrambled eggs and bacon. "Yum!" cried Callie. "This looks so good." As they finished eating, Mom placed a gift bag in front of each of the girls. Imagine their surprise when they pulled out binoculars. Both of the girls were so puzzled. "What are we going to do with these?" cried Riley. Mom chuckled and said, "We are going birding." "Birding?" asked Callie. "What's that?" They gathered in the living room and Mom began to tell them how she had signed them up with the Community Parks and Rec to take a birding class this week, since they didn't have to go to school. For 5 days they would go to the park and try to find all of the birds on the list they would be given. At the end of the week, the winner got a gift. They would work in pairs. Mom had a friend named Joanne, and they would be partners, and the girls would be partners. They had to take a picnic lunch too. "Oh boy," cried Callie, "this sounds like so much fun." "I wish we could go by ourselves, Mom," said Riley. "Well, maybe next year. You're only 11, and you have to be 12 unless your parents come too," Mom answered. "That's okay," cried Callie. "It still sounds like fun." Suddenly, the doorbell rang. There stood Joanne with the picnic lunch, and Mom had a small cooler on wheels. Together, they all walked to the park. When they arrived, they saw lots of parents with their kids. The kids were sitting up front so they could see better. Everybody was in a great mood. Rules were explained, and the bird list was given to each team. The bell rang, and they were off looking for birds. Everybody had binoculars, so they were all looking. There were several trails to pick from, so they decided they would head down the path into the woods. In the woods, they saw many birds. Each time they saw the birds, they would note on their paper the type of bird and the time. They would quickly write it down and move on to the next bird. But it wasn't just birds. They saw squirrels. At one point of the trail, there was a bird feeder set up. They watched the squirrel approach the bird feeder. He eventually figured out how to climb right up to the top of that bird feeder. Then they watched as the squirrel figured out how to get down to the bird's food, and it continued to eat the food. As they continued to walk, Joanne almost stepped on a frog. Once they got past the frog, another bird was walking along. Finally, it was lunchtime. "Yum," said Riley. "This is so good." While they were sitting there, they heard a knocking or tapping sound, and looking at a dead tree, they saw the red head of a woodpecker tapping on the log. Have you ever seen so many different animals and birds? They are always here, wherever you go, said Joanne. You know what? God made them all, and each one is different, even the birds. God's creations are all beautiful. But you know what the most beautiful thing of all is? Asked Mom. No, what? Asked Callie. The two of you, cried Mom. You are all so special. Thanks, Mom, said the girls together. As they watched the wind blowing the trees, they packed up their lunch and headed back into the woods. They found a few more trails to walk on, and finally it was time to end the day. When they reached the rec center, they saw where a couple of people had found some bugs and they were looking at them through the magnifying glass. The girls kept a distance back from the bugs. They weren't too fond of bugs. Then they saw Shelley, who had a butterfly in her net. Now, butterflies they did like, so they weren't afraid to be close to Shelley. After 5 great days of doing this, it was now Saturday morning, and the kids were back at the recreation center where Miss Harper and Mr. Jordan were telling them all what a great job they did. The trophy that was to be given to the winning team was a camera. The winning team could then use their camera to document future adventures. They watched as 2 kids from their school won the prize. They learned later that the winners went birding a lot. The group leader told all of the first-timers that they had really done a great job and they would probably do even better next year. So everybody left smiling. What a great week, said Callie on the walk back home. Thanks, Mom, for this adventure, said Riley. This world that God made is beautiful, and there is so much to explore, said Mom. 2:19. From the ground God formed every wild animal and every bird in the sky.